Let me see. Yes, we are live. Yes. So hello everyone, welcome and thank you again for joining us today. My name is Claudia and I am our organizer for Testinui. For this first webinar series, we have invited our keynote speaker from our past conference editions. So before starting, if you have any comment or question about what Derk will present, please write them in the live comment panel located on the left of your screen. We will review them at the end of Derk's presentation. So we are thrilled and excited to have Derk-Jan De Grood today as our special guest. We met some time ago. I don't remember if we met at XPOQA or the Agile Testing Day conference, but we have been in touch since then. And we had the honor, and we have the honor and pleasure to have him at Testinui conference in 2018. So welcome, Derk.
Thank you very much. It's very good to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like being back in Uruguay. So we were sharing some pictures that we took over there.
Yeah, sure.
So in idea, I'm not sitting in the attic here in the Netherlands, but I'm in Montevideo.
Yeah, that's cool. We have a great time when you came. Yeah, it was awesome to see you here and having you.
Yes, I'm very pleased to contribute today to Testinui.
Thank you very much, Derk. So I don't know if you would like to share your screen now so we can share it.
I will do that because we prepared the presentation, so it has the advantage that I'm standing in front of the slides and it's more lively and more engaging for you.
Okay, more challenge.
So it will be more fun, I think, to watch. But it's pre-recorded, so I'll leave you to the other me that will show in a minute, and we'll speak live Q&A in half an hour.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Just give me a moment.
Yeah.
You should see it now.
Yes.
I'll start it. Hi everyone, my name is Derk-Jan and I'd like to talk with you about building quality today and what it takes to become a building quality ambassador. Imagine the situation where you had a production release and there were some issues and the manager sits down with you to discuss how we can avoid it in the future. From a tester's point of view, it seems logical to come up with tester solutions. So maybe do more regression testing or do more automation. But today we'll learn that there might be a good idea to step back a little bit, zoom out, and to think about other solutions in order to improve than the obvious test solutions. Because we want to make an impact for the organization and we want to ensure a continuous flow of value, because that's what organizations want, right? So let's look at what organizations want, what building quality is, how we as testers can contribute to building quality to end up with talking about building quality maturity. So what do organizations actually want? Organizations want to stay in business. They want to have happy customers that come back to them. And in order to do that, they should change and fill in on the changing demands and embrace new technologies and put that live so customers come back to them and are happy. In order to do that, and by putting that live, they get feedback on the quality of the system, but they also get feedback on the business idea. If they decide to change something because they think it yields new revenue or makes the customer happy or attracts a new customer, it's good to put it live and actually see what's happening and whether that's a good assumption. So in order to do that, we need to go live, and we need to go live very often and fast. So no wonder that a lot of organizations are embracing Agile's development method, because that's the method that actually helps to make small increments and to go live regular and frequently and get those feedback loops. That's a good idea. But it's a challenge as well, because I come in many organizations that do Agile or claim to do Agile, but they're struggling with a lot of challenges. And one of the challenges that I see is that they have low predictability. Predictability is getting live and completing those things that you actually plan to do. And on a user story level, most teams manage to do that. There are 80%, 100% predictability. But if you look at epic completion, That's far lower, and organizations drop maybe to 50, sometimes 40% of predictability. So that means they don't complete the whole end-to-end customer journey and cannot put that live to the customer to experience that and get that feedback loop. There was a survey among the managers of one of my customers, and they claimed we don't have the environments actually to support end-to-end delivery. And then there's a lot of dependencies between the teams, often component teams. So there's a lot of time going on in aligning those dependencies. And sometimes the dependencies make that things are not finished in time. And then we're all very busy with doing or DevOps things or operational things. So there's hardly any time to improve or to automate. And that's really a struggle as well. And the consequence of that is that we don't go live that often, production-wise. And sometimes we are afraid to go live because we don't really trust the end-to-end solution. We changed some things, but we didn't do the integration test that good, or we're not able to do the whole end-to-end test because we don't have environments for that. We change things, but we're afraid that if we put it back in the hole and we put it live, a lot of complaints will be coming, like the manager in our previous situation was having as well. So then the whole idea of going agile and getting fast feedback loops kind of crumbles. So what we need is trust in the quality of the system to go live. And I believe built-in quality provides organizations that trust to make frequent adaptations and to actually take them in production and learn whether they're on the right track. So it's a good idea to talk about built-in quality and investigate what it actually is. And we'll learn that that comprises more than just the test solutions that we come up with. And where the testers come up with test solutions, just like they're saying a hammer, for a hammer, every problem is a nail, we'll learn that there might be other things that we can do. And not all the test solutions are the best solutions that we can have. So what is built-in quality, actually? The funny thing is, it's been around for many times. It's not new. It's originating from Lean. And if you look on the internet, you find a lot of these kind of things that explain it. And it's just 3 random things that I found on the internet. And they say, well, you should perform code reviews, write unit tests, test a lot, fix bugs ASAP, make a quality build in each process step, make quality control, make it visible where the problem is, solve root causes, that kind of stuff. So that's been around, and a lot of these things sound familiar for us as testers as well. But I think built-in quality becomes kind of hip and fashionable, and it might be due to the SAFe framework. The SAFe framework is a scaling agile framework. Scaling agile, if you're working with multiple teams on one solution, then you're scaling up. And SAFe is giving this picture, which is a clickable map where you can click on things and get a lot of information about how you can do that. And a lot of organizations are embracing the SAFe framework. And somewhere in the framework, it states that SAFe assumes that quality is built in, is a fixed given thing for all delivery, all development done. And if you look at the picture, well, you can look where is the built-in quality icon. It's all the way here in the corner. A small icon that says it's really important to have quality built in at all time. But what does SAFe say about built-in quality? Well, originally, they didn't say much, but luckily with each update, they say a little bit more. But in essence, they say a few things. They say, think test first. So they say, use behavior-driven development, test-driven kind of methodologies in order to have the test frame top of mind. Do automation, but do that on the right place. So they use the pyramid to explain that you should do not that much GUI tests, but you should do automation at the lower technical levels because that's more stable, more flexible, faster. Well, you know the pyramid. Then they say reduce the size of the test set because you're probably going to run the tests quite a lot. So reduce the execution time and reassess what tests are in there. Or maybe come up with a test regression strategy, which tells you what things you do on check-in, what things you do on your daily build, and what tests you do maybe in the weekend, something like that. In order to keep that pace and fast testing possible and don't delay the cadence of the development. And last but not least, they say integrate often. So do continuous integration and deployment. Sounds like a good idea. And embed quality in the whole development pipeline. And to do that, they have some kind of cascading, the definition of done, where they say you can do things on the team level. That's the definition of done that we all know and mostly talk about. But we can have a definition of done at the system increment, at the solution, and maybe at the release increment. And I helped you a little bit by highlighting some of the test activities in the definition of done. So it shows that we testers can do a lot, but not everything that needs to be done in order to get a release done is test work. If we look at a team level, what we could do more, I think it's important to do refinement. Refinement saves a lot of hassle, makes that we can think about solutions thoroughly, we get less surprises, and we can actually talk about how can we test things or what should we demo. So measures at team level that I really appreciate are proper refinement, using a definition of ready, at user story level, but why not use it at an epic level as well, to prepare the ready items 2 sprints ahead, so have some kind of stock of refined backlog items. Talk about, and that's where testers can come in, like how are we going to test this or what are we going to demo once it's done. Then more development things, have collective ownership of the code. If you break it, you make it. Work together, do pair working, pair programming, pair testing, do reviews with the three amigos, that kind of stuff. Make effective demos. If you prepared the question, what are we going to demo? Maybe it's a good idea to show that as well. Do a lot of unit testing, have your version control in order, because if you want to do continuous integration and deployment, that's a key thing to have test-driven development, make testing a team responsibility, not only that of the tester, and do a lot of automation. So there are many things that you can do at a team level, but what do we do as a tester? If you want to learn more about that, together with Mette Brun Pedersen, I wrote an ebook about 4,000 words that is dealing with building quality and how you can embed it in the same framework. A lot of these things that I just told are in there, and you can download that for free. So we know a little bit about built-in quality, but what can we do as a tester? I think there's a shift from the tester that does everything towards a quality coach, and then we end up with the built-in quality ambassador. So let's start to talk about the tester that does test everything. I've seen testers in the team that are dedicated testers, and they have to do clickety, clickety, click, a lot of work at the end of each sprint to come up with tests and complete them, while there are many developers that are doing development work. So they're really hasty, stressful, and that sometimes they don't get things done. And then tests flow over to the next sprint, so we get some kind of waterfall kind of principles. One of the first teams that I coached, I came up with the following solution, which I still like a lot. Because I sat down with him and said, like, you're wasting a lot of time with executing the tests and you don't get time to think about the quality at all. So why don't we look at the type of changes that we have? Because although the changes are different every time, the system is the same. So basically the type of changes that we have don't differ that much. Because we, for instance, change things on the web interface or on the calculation or the business rule, or we have letters or emails that are sent out, that kind of stuff. And well, each change that we make is a combination of one or more of these things. So if we have that list, maybe we can talk about with the team who does the testing. So if we have the web interface, for instance, why don't we ask the developer to do the validation test, that kind of stuff, and then we use the user in order to do the usability and whether it works and whether it looks right. Maybe you don't have to do that much as a tester. But if there's a change in the calculation, well, the developer should do a lot of things. But as a tester, you might say, well, I'm very good in exception situations and analysis and finding the critical areas to see whether the calculation is correct. So I want to be involved in that. So you kind of make a table like this, and whenever in refinement a new user story comes up, you just say like, well, is the web interface involved in this change? Yeah. Okay, programmer, you're going to do this kind of test, and I'll go call Susan because she needs to be testing as well in this sprint if we pick this one up. So you can deviate and divide the work over more than yourself as a tester. And then testing becomes part of the whole team. But you save a lot of time as well. And that time you can use to think about how proper testing is being done, or maybe to coach the people, Susan, the user, or the developer, how they can do better testing, or stimulate and think about how you can do the automation. And you can become some kind of test coach, maybe. I see that testing is a team responsibility, and I see a lot of developers that are really eager to have quality in as well. But they're not testers like we are, and they're not trained the way we are. So sometimes they're a little bit searching for a way. So they're not hating it, or they're not reluctant to do that, but they need to get started and supported. And we can, as testers, free some time and sit with them and say, like, this is the way you can do better testing. And then we kind of become a test coach. And we end up with the test coach struggle, which I call that there are some teams that say, please do help me as tester, because I think test needs to improve. And indeed, they're right, testing needs to be improved. But I've seen many teams as well that say, our testing is perfectly in order, we don't need help, but it wasn't okay. So as a test coach, we need to learn skills, how we persuade them, how we help them to understand where the improvements lay, and to see how we can improve the testing. And that means that we need to be convincing and we need to be persuasive. But I also have the alarm clock here, because I stated that one of the challenges is that we don't have much time left for improvements. So this is really a big challenge. Teams don't have time for improvement. Teams don't have time for automation because they're really, really, really busy most of the time. But we can become a test coach. And these are things that we can do at a team level. But good testing at a team level is not our main goal. We want to make an impact and support value delivery for the organization, right? So let's look at built-in quality maturity. What can we do outside the team level? How can we extend or influence further and make a true impact? And in order to understand built-in quality maturity, maybe it's nice to look at the production line first, because a lot of these lean things come from manufacturing, so that feels more natural. And in the production line, you can imagine the following workflow, where there's components built at a station, then they are assembled by the team into a product. The product is shipped and then sold towards the customer. And if we're talking about built-in quality maturity, I think the lowest quality maturity, built-in quality maturity level is avoiding the crappy products to get to the customer. For the customer, that's fine, because for him, it's a first time right and he's not impacted by any failure at all, but it's an expensive, wasteful method. And I try to depict that here because this is where the team at the end of the production line is doing a quality check and discarding all the things that are not okay. Or maybe they're reusing the parts of that. If it's plastic, they can remelt the thing or something like that. But the check is late. There's a lot of work being done on products that were not good from the first place, and a lot of things are thrown away or recycled. And that might seem like a little bit strange method to do that, but we're preparing this talk. I was looking for advertisers of those tapes, and there's a lot of stickers and tapes available on the market for the quality check, and also the red ones that say quality check is not good, product is rejected. They're widely available, so probably there is a need for that. So if we want to avoid waste and want to go to a higher level of maturity, I think shift left in manufacturing means finding defects more early. And when I was looking for maturity models, I find Joe Maceo's maturity model from manufacturing, which shows a little bit a step like we know from TMM kind of things. And here it says, avoid customers to be impacted by that. And if you go up on the higher levels, he's trying to find ways to find defects earlier and maybe discard components before they integrate, for example. So that is the maturity level in manufacturing. So I have great fun in transforming that to an IT department. So let's imagine an IT department and a development flow. What does that mean? And how can we find a high level of maturity? Once more, The lowest level of maturity might be the update of your iOS, for instance. So there's a bug. Uh, Before you actually are bothered by that, you get a new update overnight, and most of the customers never notice that there was something wrong. But that's a little bit same as putting red stickers on that or revoking a lot of products from the shop in order to avoid the customer being impacted. So looking at an IT development, we can draw some kind of development life cycle. And this is what I made. It's a generic one. And in your organization, you might have extra steps or small deviations. But it starts with making a roadmap, making a release planning, refining your stories until the sprint planning, making the stories come to life, building them, do unit testing, code review, do functional testing, do integration testing, do your acceptance, finishing the whole customer journey end to end, see whether it's work, and then monitoring in production or incident handling. So this could be your flow that you're in. And I like to emphasize the higher ones, the left ones, so to say, because I think there's a lot of impact to be made there. So shift left in software development means also finding defects earlier, and we call that a higher level of built-in quality. And that means that we have to create feedback loops at different stages in our software development lifecycle. And that could look a little bit like this. So we want to have defects found before the product is scheduled, before the user stories are defined. We want to find out whether the epics are okay, something like that. Uh, we want to find defects before the stories are being built, before they put live, etc., until we say we find defects before the customer is affected. It's all about defining feedback loops. And if we start defining feedback loops, we shift all the way to become a built-in quality ambassador. And what does a quality ambassador do? I think he stands up on the stage, he stands up on a soapbox and makes a fist for built-in quality and quality awareness. And he wants to have quality embedded in every step of the delivery process. And he's making a fist to reduce waste by detecting defects earlier and make them visible and act upon them. And then finally, he's trying to find ways to avoid the defects to be created. And that sounds a little bit familiar if you're a tester, right? And one of the first things that we need to do is zoom out, because it might be obvious to do more regression testing or more better testing, but we should check where in the development lifecycle making adaptations or defining feedback loops is most effective, and where we can make most impact and where the waste is at the highest. So that's an interesting thing. So what does that mean? That means that we should engage a mature discussion with our stakeholders about how do we define quality and how do we measure quality and what do we do when it's insufficient and where in the pipeline or in the development cycle can we actually detect that there's something wrong. And I don't see many organizations having that mature discussion. Maybe because they're busy, maybe because they need help from a built-in quality ambassador. And he could help making these kind of sheets. So this is an example for the release planning, where we say an epic should be owned, profitable, sized, and end-to-end solution. How do we measure that? Well, there it is, the definition of ready on an epic level. And we can use that to check whether there's a business sponsor, whether it's supported by a business case, and that can be done within a quarter. I'm personally a fan of epics that can be done within a quarter. I know there are organizations that have epics that last half a year or maybe 1.5 years, but I like to keep them small. But if you're an organization that has it longer, maybe you should do it on a feature level. So we know how we can measure that, and we have a discussion about that. And then we can find out where we can detect that. Where's the check moment? Maybe for in this case, during an epic intake by the chief product owner, or before an epic is put on the epic backlog in a more continuous flow. Another example could be the release planning, where we say roadmap is feasible and realistic. What does that mean? So we have that discussion again. What do we measure and how can we make that tangible? So we could say we take into account the WIP limit, and we take into account the dependencies, the skills, and the deadlines. So that means that we WIP limit, the work in progress. We don't do more than 3 epics in a quarter. And if we have a lot of dependencies between the teams, we want to have more space in the roadmap, or we put other things in there so we don't get stuck in dependencies. And if we want to develop an epic and it requires a lot of new skills and the teams don't have those skills, well, maybe we should do something else or do something extra, that kind of thing. And when do we detect that? Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe in the quarterly planning or a PI event, if you have one, or a portfolio meeting. But having this discussion and filling in this template triggers some discussion about feedback loops. And then the most important thing, maybe, and that's something which I do not see happen that often in organizations, is we should agree what we do if it's not good enough. And that's the stop the line principle from Lean. They're called Jidoka. And you can see here the endon cord, the yellow cord with the hand on it, which is used in production lines. When there's something wrong, you pull the cord and the whole development ceases. I don't think in IT we need to stop the whole IT department, but we should start the discussion by what do we do when an epic is not good? What do we do if the roadmap does not take into account and we find it a problem? And I don't see many organizations that have that discussion going on or in place. So we could add some extra stuff to our template, like what's the exception? And when insufficient an epic is rejected, what do we do? The CPO sits with the sponsor to assess impact and we adjust the roadmap. We agree on that right now. And who's involved? The CPO and the business stakeholder. Or in the second example of the roadmap, when the WIP limit is exceeded, we have too many epics in our quarter, or dependencies introduce risks, we refactor the roadmap. And we sit together with business development, product owners, or agile coaches and make the new roadmap. And then finally, last but not least, we need to have a discussion about the speed of the feedback loop, where we need to keep the test automation time short because we don't want to delay the cadence and we want to have fast automation. It means for other feedback loops as well that we should think about how much time may that take. What's the throughput time of doing that check? Because we don't want it to slow down. And if we do that, we can get feedback loop and eliminate waste and get to a higher level of maturity. And then there's one level left, the fifth level, which is avoiding the waste. And that's an interesting one because that one means we need to engage communication and we should do some root cause analysis on the quality checks that we're performing. So, for instance, if we have epics and they're rejected very often, we learn from that and gain information. And if we sit down, we can say, like, how does it come? What's the root cause behind epics being rejected? And then we can take measures in order to avoid that. So, building in quality, making an impact, means that we should go beyond the testing, obvious testing things, because there are many more things how we can help and make an impact in the organization. But we need to check where that's most effective. We need to agree what we do. We stop the line when the quality is too low at a certain stage. We should find a way to assess the quality in a speed that doesn't delay the cadence of the organization. And it should never become a bottleneck. And once we have that in place, we can do root cause analysis to find further improvements. So what we told today is that we want to go live, but there's a lot of challenges. So we need to have trust in the quality in order to dare to go live. And there's a lot of things at team level that we can do. A lot of testing measures, development measures. And I think we should do that. They're good stuff. But we could also engage the rest of the team, make quality a team responsibility, and coach them or team members in their organization in doing the quality stuff. And by doing that, we're shifting from testing everything ourselves into automations and test coaches, eventually shifting maybe to a built-in quality ambassador. And that means that we make a stand and define feedback loops, have mature meetings and discussions about designing those feedback loops, talking about where, how, and what we can measure, and what we do when something goes wrong. And I told you about the four conditions. Check where to make an impact. Don't let it become a bottleneck. Discuss what you do when you stop and do the RCA. And I believe if we do those things, we increase the predictability of our teams and we improve the quality of our product so we have less issues in production. We find defects earlier, so we reduce the waste and we shorten the time to market. And everybody is happy in the organization. But last but not least, a very important thing, I think we create great leverage for further improvements at team level. And so we get the time and the attention that we need to do those automation, to do those improvements. And that's really a step forward. So think big, become a big ambassador, and make a big impact. And I wish you good luck with doing so. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you, Derk. Thank you, Derk. It was amazing the way of presenting, really pro, the way of having this way of presenting. It was the first time that we have this way. And it was very motivational, the session. I enjoy it a lot, the session, and I like it a lot how you highlighted during all the session the importance of having and incorporating feedback loops from the beginning in our process. I think this was really engaging. Let me check. Let me check the live panel if we have any comment or question. We have one from Diego. That he said hi, and also that considering that testers don't do all the testing tasks, like the testing all changes, because it's a team responsibility, how do you get this commitment from the team? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's principle if you're in an agile organization. So that depends on whether you are doing agile or not. It's one of the core principles that you work as a team. So you should avoid having a separate test department, and the testers should be part of the team. And I think it's a wise thing to have the discussion with your team about responsibilities and who's responsible for what. And the true question behind your question is, of course, if I tell them that they're responsible for the quality as well, and they don't like that, and they're putting that to me again, and they're pointing, you're the tester, you should do that. How do you convince them? And that will require some skills and some arguments, but it's a core principle. And what you could do is explain what happens if you become a bottleneck. And I think that's one of the line of arguments showing that if you have different disciplines, you're less flexible and your flow of value output is decreasing because you have handovers and you're waiting and you have less exchange of information. So trying to convince them that collaboration on these items enables to give better output and faster output and more valuable solutions, hoping that they are open for that. And if they are not open for delivering value solutions, you have a serious problem, of course. Does that answer the question?
Yes, of course. Let's wait if Diego mentions something else, but in the meantime, we have another question. Here, this question is from Ben. And the question is, how do you handle pushback BIQ where people want to keep a status quo, especially since testers don't always have the credibility to influence change? Thanks. A very hard one.
It's a very hard one. And there are organizations where change and improvements are very hard to do that. And I can imagine if your testers stuck away somewhere in a team, it's very difficult. But then I see a lot of organizations where testers group in a center of expertise or that kind of things, or in chapters. And often there's a chapter lead that has a more managerial role. So you can come up with, as a group of testers, and finding some sponsors in the organization to put that on the table. But you should look for your quality sponsors at C-level maybe. And if not at C-level, at one level higher, and see if you can make a difference, or make small experiments. So don't wait for the final improvement, but just show your success stories.
Thanks, there. Diego mentioned that yes, you. Let's wait for Ben. And
it's hard to interpret the question.
I added one that is mine. And in your opinion, which are the
sound is breaking.
team to assess code?
Yeah, the sound was breaking.
Sorry?
Probably, but I read. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, and I can read the question.
Great.
I think it's a little bit related to the last question. Like if you are a tester within the team, it's sometimes hard to make changes across team or at a higher level because people stamp you on the head like you're just a tester. So maybe don't be just a tester, but move to quality. I think that's something which is trending now anyway, not to talk about testing, but talk a little bit more about the quality. And then testing is a way to get that quality in, but be more than just a tester. And find your people at a higher level, or combine your knowledge with other testers from other teams.
Great. Thank you, Derk. Ben also mentioned that. Great, thanks.
I didn't solve the problem, but I hope you put you on the way. Yeah.
And let me check if there is any other comment or question. We have this 10-second delay from the
no
stream.
problem.
So let's wait a few seconds just to check if there is any other comments or questions. Okay. Okay. Okay, so if there are no more questions or comments, thanks again, Derk.
You're welcome.
It has been a pleasure to have you again and being part again of Testinui. And we appreciate a lot of your time. Thanks everyone for joining us. This is our last webinar in our first webinar series, but don't be sad. We will have a new series, and next webinar will be in 2 weeks, and we will have as a special guest Mike Lives. So hope you can join us. So thank you again, keep safe, and thank you, Derk, again for your time and sharing your knowledge with us. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, I see a lot of thanks coming in. So thank you for listening, and enjoy doing it. And I hope you can pick some ingredients out of that and make a difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Derk, there is a question from Lucas. If you can share the link about the book. So
can I do that in the chat?
Yes, if you do it in the chat, it's going to be kept there because when we publish the recording, the live chat is also there. So if people watch the recording later, we'll have it too.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it.
Okay, great. And you have really nice comments. Great talk. Thanks for the webinar. Excellent presentation. Thank you. And more.
The first link is to my WordPress, but I'm not sure. The book link is there.
Okay. We can do it later. We don't
do that later. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah. So thank you, Derk, again.
Just a second.
Okay.
I have it here. And
awesome.
Then you have it. That should work.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Derk, again.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you for your time again. Thank you all. See you in 2 weeks. Thank you very much.